Well, first of all, this 19 newly elected legislators coming from a very broad base. Obviously, you have many from the political parties, but there are also many new faces from many different professional backgrounds. You have professors from universities to even like from the labor forces. You'd be surprised how broad-based this group of 90 new, well, not so all new faces, but some are new faces and some are the incumbents from the previous legislature.
How have the elections been in terms of the way how it's conducted and how things went? Has it been fair and open without deregularities, but also effective in choosing the right people to serve the long-term interests of the city? Bernard.
Well, obviously, this is the first election that after the electoral reform. In fact, I was a legislator myself from 1998 to 2008. And the difference between then and now is that obviously, after what we've gone through in 2019, and even before 2019, our legislature in Hong Kong is practically in a standstill for quite some time. There's always a disagreement, and some of our opposition legislators oppose for the sake of opposing. Anything that have to do with China, they will raise the concern and they demonize anything that has to do with the mainland of China. So, and that's not helping Hong Kong's and not helping Hong Kong's economy. So the new changes now ensure that, obviously you can still disagree with the government, but you have no ill intention to try to destabilize our relationship with the mainland. So, so I think without that, I would assume that the legislature should be back in business. We should try to focus on addressing some of the deep-rooted social issues in Hong Kong.
According to PORI, which is a polling institution in Hong Kong, from January to November this year, Hong Kong residents' satisfaction with the political situation increased by 13%, 12% increased by 12% with livelihood, and 12% also for the economic conditions. At the same time, their dissatisfaction rate on these same aspects went down considerably by around 11%, 6%, or 7%, or 16% respectively. So, Bernard, despite all the claims by critics about, the doom of Hong Kong as a free city, what do these figures indicate about the state affairs when these elections were held?
Well, it's not the first time the outside world see Hong Kong differently. I mean, back in '97, there were a lot of doubters. There were a lot of critics claiming that that's the doom of Hong Kong as well. So, and we proved them wrong. And I'm sure we're going to prove them wrong again this time. Now, I think many of us in business definitely would desperately see Hong Kong return with law and order. And back in the second half of 2019, when chaos in the city, and people are tired and sick of that. Now, of course, I'm not saying that things are rosy now. We still have a lot of issues to deal with. We have our long-rooted social issues, housing demand, and all these are still there. In addition to the pandemic is hurting Hong Kong. I mean, being as an international city, we are somewhat now caught in between two very different methods of treating the pandemic. So it is hurting the economy, but without law and order, without the prospect of a good economy, I mean, the city won't be able to function. I think so by and large, we are doing far better than what we would have been without the introduction of the national security law and the electoral reform.
And so some of the critics have been saying, look, you have 40 members that are being elected from members of the election committee, which is a new thing this time, right? Because in the past you didn't have that. But then you have less members coming from the directly elected geographical constituencies, as they are known. And they're saying, look, you have less representation of the people. You have actually, less democracy in the Western sense. Bernard, how do you look at that?
Well, first of all, actually, the composition of the election committee is nothing new. We start off with also three different constituencies. We have the functional, representing different sectorial interests, geographical, Hong Kong's divided into 5 different districts back then, and also election committee. So it's actually nothing new. It's the same, except that now it's a recomposition. what happened was in the past, too much sectoral interest and so much local interest at play. And that actually is not in the best interest of Hong Kong. We tend to have all these issues internalized that we fight and fight and fight. We never seem to be able to get anything done. With the reintroduction of the election committee, and basically with a much broader base interest. So all these newly 40 elected members no longer needs to just look at individual interests or sectoral interests, but they should be looking at Hong Kong larger interests. So I think that's the perhaps one of the intention behind this electoral reform, to make sure that the legislators elected are not just looking for one person or one group of people. They should be looking at overall Hong Kong longer interests. So, we have huge expectation with this regrouping, reforming, and hopefully that we can, try to address this issue and resolve. I mean, what happened is all these years in the last 10, 15 years, and we got just stuck on this issue and we just disagree on just about everything. So let's just, time is running out. We need to make Hong Kong continue to be relevant. I mean, we are now in a very competitive environment and competing with every place. So Hong Kong have no time to lose, and so we need to move on. So hopefully, with this new composition of legislators together with the executive branch, we'll try to serve the interests of the people of Hong Kong.